Go back about 10,000 years, this landscape was driven and characterized by two continental ice sheets. And at the end of the Pleistocene and the beginning of the Holocene, about 10,000 years, is when we started to see these continental chunks of ice start to melt. And you get to see the Upper Bow Basin. There it is, covered in ice. And the amount of water that rolled off this landscape over thousands of years be measured in hundreds, if not thousands, of cubic kilometers, taking vast amounts of material, rock, grinding it up, soils, carving out creeks and rivers, and giving us much of the microtopography that we have today. The Rockies were there. They didn't change the Rockies at a macro scale, but man, the surface of Bragg Creek, when you look at it, it's something, that table was set by glaciers and the ablation of those glaciers. So if we're going to understand Bragg Creek, we've got to understand those dynamics, because they created the physical setting. So let's think about that. This is one of the most diverse landscapes I've ever worked in. And so if we drape over just a good satellite imagery, and you can certainly see Calgary quite nicely, but here's the Front Range of the Rockies. So here we're looking at elevation. Tremendous, I'll call it west, it's really northwest to southeast gradient from very, very high elevation to very low. These are critical things to understand if you want to know why you've got the wildlife you do, and the plant communities. A tremendous diversity in topography. Let's flip it around. So now red is low and blue is high, and we're talking about precipitation. Vast, vast quantities of precipitation at the lower part of the landscape. Temperature, excuse me, I think I completely got that wrong. Precipitation, very high in the headwaters, low below. I was thinking of temperature, sorry. Temperature, very cold at the headwaters and very hot downstream. Tremendous gradient. And if we go back to precipitation, it's the elevation, and this part of this basin is so effective at capturing moisture from these water-laden systems that keep coming on off the Pacific, right? So they capture and hold an immense amount of precipitation in the form of rain and snow, and then deliver it, hopefully, in a fairly quiet way in the spring and through the summer. This may be the most important slide to think about. This is the plumbing of your landscape. And if you can see it, my eyesight isn't so good anymore, but it should show a dendritic network of ephemeral draws going into creeks, and creeks going into bigger creeks, going into rivers. And if you know this distribution of the movement of water, then you have some great insights, not only about our plant communities, but where our wildlife are too. These riparian habitats are critical. Critical to wildlife. It's also where people like to live. It also grows our biggest wood, very attractive to the forest sector. And these riparian habitats are the most heavily altered in the system historically. Water and its movement is so critical to this landscape. Now, this is kind of interesting. So this is all the moving water. We call it lotic. Now, those red things, that's lentic. That's standing water. Those are lakes. So isn't it nice that we've got all those lakes? Well, those aren't natural lakes, right? Most of them. Those are man-made lakes where humans have worked very hard to hold water back because we need it in late summer for land use. And there's a very important hint there of just how important water is to this landscape, because we're going to come back to that, because we are not taking good care of that water in many ways. And I don't know if you can see a little bit of red at the very top, and those are the last vestiges of what remains of our glacial ice sheets. Not much area there at all. And it'll be gone very quickly. Your kids, when they're your age, those aren't going to be there. So if you understand this variance in slope and aspect and elevation and topography and rain and how the water moves off the landscape, you can very quickly begin to understand why your landscape has such an amazing amount of diversity in plant communities. From the subalpine forest to the montane forest to the mixed woods further down, your shrublands, your grasslands, and your wetlands. Now, wetlands, it's sad to see so many of your wetlands are not there. They've been drained, they've been lost, including in the Bragg Creek area. We continue to lose them every year.